Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. I am Scott Coleman, and I am joined on the show tonight by Stephen Tolbert. And Stephen, it is an emergency edition of the show. The Atlanta Braves have signed outfielder Mike Yastrzemski to a 2-year deal with a club option for a third. Let's just jump right into it. Your immediate reaction as we were all sitting on our couches on this Wednesday evening and got the alert that the Braves had signed Mike Yastrzemski. Your immediate thoughts on this signing?
Yeah, what's up, buddy? So finally got an emergency pod for a signing. We've done plenty for injuries over the years, but we finally got an emergency pod for a signing. This is fascinating. This is a fascinating signing because the Braves needed off. We talked about it on the show last night that Sean and I did. The Braves need all. I thought the Braves needed to add more to the offense. Yastrzemski is a left-handed hitter. He's going to basically be what we think. We don't know for sure. The stuff just came out, but we're guessing that Yastrzemski is going to essentially be the left-handed strong side of a platoon for the DH is what we're thinking. I do think he will play for Acuna. I think he'll play for Profar some and let those guys DH, but essentially that's what they're going to do. It is way more money than I thought Mike Yastrzemski would get this offseason. He got I know you're going to go through the details, but he basically got $9 million this year, $10 million next year, and then a buyout for 2028. Fascinating deal. Oh my God, this got so many layers to it. And then Bowman just tweeted out that the Braves could still be in on shortstop. Part of how I think about this move, honestly, Scott, is going to be what they do after it. But if you're just looking at player contract, there's some fascinating things here. And I actually think Mike Yastrzemski could be better in Atlanta than he's been anywhere else. I think this move actually has a decent amount of upside. I know what fans are going to say. Fans are going to say it's boring, it's cheap. Your mentions probably look like my mentions do right now. Yeah. But I actually think there is some upside here that is actually very interesting to me. And we'll get through it as we go through the details of this. But yeah, that's my initial reaction. I think this has more upside than maybe it looks on the surface.
So let's kind of go over the contract details, and then we'll get into who Mike Yastrzemski is as a player. Yastrzemski, 35 years old, outfielder, has spent the entirety of his career with the San Francisco Giants until he was traded at the deadline to the Kansas City Royals. And we're actually going to talk about that because Yastrzemski set the world on fire in the final 2 months with Kansas City. The contract, guaranteed money, is $23 million. However, he's only going to make $9 million next season, $10 million in 2027. And then there is a $7 million club option for 2028 with a $4 million buyout, which is a pretty hefty buyout. I mean, that's a significant amount of money 3 years down the road. But in terms of what does this cost the Braves next season, only $9 million. And then who is Mike Yastrzemski, the hitter? In his 2025 season, he played 144 games with the Giants and Royals. He hit .233 with a .333 on base percentage and .403 slugging percentage, which was good for a 106 WRC plus. As a reminder, 100 is league average, so he was above league average, a few points above average. I will say, and I bolded this in my notes for the show. If folks see that Mike Yastrzemski is like a career 240 hitter, please, for the love of God, one, batting average is not the end-all be-all, but remind yourself that he has played the entirety of his career in San Francisco, in AT&T Park / Oracle Park, which is probably the least hitter-friendly environment in Major League Baseball. So do not blow a gasket seeing a low batting average and surface numbers that are not sexy. This is not a player who's hit 40 home runs. This is not a 320 hitter, although those are virtually extinct in baseball these days. But that's who Yastrzemski is, a solid hitter, not a star. No one is saying that this guy is an all-star and he's going to come in and single-handedly win a World Series for the Braves. But not only this season, but really the last 5 years, Yastrzemski has been about as consistent of a hitter as there is in Major League Baseball. He is an above-average hitter who can play 2 outfield spots for sure and maybe center field if they needed him.
Yeah, so platoon splits are so impactful that honestly it's better to think about hitters as 2 different versions of themselves, one against same-handed pitching and one against opposite-handed pitching. That's how prevalent platoon splits are, not just for Yastrzemski, but for every player in baseball. So when you see a platoon split like Yastrzemski has, where he just mashes righties, and when you remember that he's almost exclusively going to play against righties, that is effectively what you're trading for, right? You're not really trading for all the negative stuff that happened when he played against lefties, because the Braves almost certainly are not going to let him play against lefties more than maybe a handful of times. So while his overall numbers do matter, what he does against right-handed pitching specifically matters for the Braves. And maybe the most interesting thing I found, and I just tweeted this out. Over the last 2 years, there is no qualified left-handed hitter in baseball that pulls the ball more, or I'm sorry, hits more fly balls than Mike Yastrzemski, and only 3 left-handed qualified hitters pull the ball more than Mike Yastrzemski. So he is a heavy fly ball, heavy pull side hitter. Well, like you just said, he spent the entirety of his career in maybe the worst possible ballpark for that combination, which is AT&T Park in San Francisco, where not only does offense go to die, but specifically left-handed offense goes to die. It was literally is probably the worst skill set versus a home ballpark that we had in baseball. Now he's moving to Truist Park, where that skill set is not only amplified, it is amplified to a level really maybe other than Yankee Stadium, no other park can do. And that is a short porch in right field. This is where I think the upside, I know it's weird to talk about upside with a guy that's 35 years old, but we've never seen him play in a park like he's about to play in, that not only helps his skill set, but is actually built for his skill set. And I think the Braves are matching up player and ballpark a little bit here. They definitely see more upside than, if you look again, like MLB trade rumors didn't have him in their top 50. No one had him getting a contract like this. The Braves see more in him than the general consensus is. And I understand fans who aren't going to love this. Like you say, he's not a star player, but I think this is a signing specifically where you have to look deeper. I hope people aren't using batting average anyways, but you have to look deeper than batting average. You have to look even deeper than like WRC plus. You got to get into the platoon splits because that's how the Braves are going to use him. And I think you got to get into his batted ball profile relative to the park he's about to go to really see the upside of this. And it does change. I think it actually changes my outlook on it, where when I first saw it, I was kind of meh. I actually am a little bit more excited about this because I want to see what this dude can do in a ballpark that actually accentuates his pluses from a batted ball perspective.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, when I got the alert the Braves were signing Mike Yastrzemski, I didn't jump off my couch and do backflips across the house. Like that's not the level of player this is. But at the same time, Mike Yastrzemski is a really solid ball player and has been his whole career. When he came up late in his career, he didn't debut with the Giants until he was like 28 years old.
Yeah.
He set the world on fire with San Francisco. I mean, he was like, I think he got MVP votes one year. And of course, he's cooled down considerably. There was an injury or two as well that kept him out, but he's been remarkably consistent. He's been pretty durable. And we've talked about on this show for, months at this point, the importance of adding a rotating outfielder to give you insurance if and when Acuna or Profar or Harris get injured or just need a couple days, even if it's not a serious injury, but they just need a couple days. It gives you a rotational bat at DH. And again, as you said, as long as Yastrzemski is used in the right way against right-handed pitching almost exclusively, this guy hits righties. Like there is no denying that. Even if you are the biggest Mike Yastrzemski hater in the world, you cannot deny this guy hits right-handed pitching really well, has his entire career, a 126 WRC plus and about an 800 career OPS against righties. Again, in that ballpark in San Francisco, that is a nightmare to hit in. He also takes walks. He has a career 10.5% walk rate, 11% the last 3 years, which is something this lineup could use because we know there's plenty of slug in this lineup when the Braves are going right. They don't have a ton of on base, and guys who take walks and won't strike out a ton is down to 18% strikeout rate last year. So again, please don't fire up our mentions in our YouTube comments saying they were pretending like this guy is Kyle Schwarber, because he is not. But he also did not take 5 years and $150 million to sign And as long as there are more moves on the horizon, I totally get what Alex Anthopoulos is doing here.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a move where like the moves that come after matter. If you really can't look at this move in a vacuum, you have to add the context of what else they do. If they go out and get a real shortstop tomorrow, this move looks better, right? If they
Sure.
don't, it looks worse. So the context matters a lot here. And again, you see so much more right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching typically in a baseball season. It's actually like 65-35. Some years it's like 70-30. So having the strong side of the platoon, which is you're a left-handed hitter that can hit right-handed pitching, is just more valuable than being the opposite, being a right-handed hitter that hits left-handed pitching. And again, because of where the Braves play and the dimensions of their ballpark, I think you can add even more value. So I do like the move. I do need to see what else they're going to do. I love the fact that he takes walks. I do think his power is going to go up in truest. I think he had 17 homers last year, which is not like nothing. I mean, that's pretty good pop for what is essentially going to be their fourth outfielder. Maybe my favorite thing about this, other than the ballpark to player matchup, is the fact that it pretty much ensures that the Braves are not going to have a full-time DH. They're not going to have like a Marcelo Zuna on the roster. I was really, really hoping that they would do something that indicated to me that they weren't going to go back down that road because I mean, you know as well as I do, Scott, if it got to like February and the Braves still hadn't addressed anything and Marcelo Zuna was still sitting out there,
Yeah.
like you could just see that coming down the track from a mile away. And I feel like this indicates they're saying like they're waving bye to that era of having a full-time permanent DH, which we have talked about ad nauseum that we do not like. Having an actual guy who can stand in the outfield, it's actually a pretty solid corner outfielder, is a much better use of that position and being able to rotate Acuna and Profar and all the stuff. So that may be, other than ballpark and player matchup, that might be my favorite part of this.
Yeah. So we are going to keep digging in on Yastrzemski and then also talk about what could be next for the Braves after they have now added a closer, they've added a utility man and maybe their shortstop and a rotational outfielder in Mike Yastrzemski. But first, a quick word from our partners. All right, Stephen, let's talk a little bit about Mike Yastrzemski's defense. Now, again, he's 35 years old. There are not a ton of 35-year-old outfielders still roaming fields in Major League Baseball, but defensively, he is graded out okay. He's probably not going to win you a gold glove out there, but this past season, he played a lot of right field, could play left field, could also play center field. I think he only logged about 60 innings in center field this past year, but Yastrzemski has done it in the past. Probably wouldn't kill you, although if something happens to Michael Harris, you probably don't want Yastrzemski out there every day, but he's at least done it before and probably wouldn't kill you too much if you had to do it for a few days. But, also Yastrzemski is not overly fast. He's been like 40th percentile in sprint speed the last 2 years, but he's actually graded out as a really good base runner the past 2 years on StatCast, getting good reads, good jumps, taking the extra base. So again, solid fielder. I think that's probably fair to say. He's probably not going to get any better at this point in his career. And a solid base runner, not a burner, probably not going to steal 25 bases for you. But again, man, this is just overall a sound baseball player.
Yeah, and listen, most of the angst from the fan base over this move is entirely tied to the fact that they feel like this is the only thing that's going to happen. Like if I could guarantee every single fan out there right now that more moves were coming, like if I could just say that as a matter of fact, then the angst I think would be lower. Just after watching the Braves basically make one move last offseason, do nothing at the trade deadline, be very quiet overall over the last 12 months. I think the fans have been on edge, and every time they see a smaller move like Mauricio Dubon or like Mike Yastrzemski, they think, all right, this is it. This is all they're doing. I don't think that. I do think the Braves are still actively going to upgrade shortstop. I do think the Braves are going to actively upgrade the rotation. I do think Mike Yastrzemski fits better in the Braves ballpark than maybe his underlying numbers would suggest. That I think his production will be higher than maybe what he's done in the past. So I am not nearly as negative about this as you're going to see. I actually think there's upside here, but I do. If you're somebody at home that's like, all right, I need to see more. I get that. I'm fine with it. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's a perfectly fair assessment. I'm not going to listen to the people that are just doom and gloom about everything. But if you're like, okay, this is solid, but I need to see more before I'm happy, that's perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah. I think, and this is an assumption, we do not know for certainty the Braves are going to go out and add an impact starting pitcher, a couple of relievers to the bullpen. Maybe they reunite with Ha-Seong Kim on a shorter deal or trade for a shortstop. But I feel like if we had a crystal ball and we could transport ourselves to the first day of spring training and just see everything the Braves did over the offseason,
Yeah.
my true thought here as we sit here on December 10th is we're going to be happy. When we get to the end of the road, we're going to be happy. And sure, bringing back Raisel Iglesias, a 36-year-old closer on a one-year deal, a guy we've known for 4 years, is it sexy? Is it exciting? No. But
Yeah.
objectively, he was a really solid closer for this team the last 4 years. Not even solid, really good closer for this team the last 4 years. I know he was terrible the first 2 months, but was great after that. Mauricio Dubon, we will see what his role ultimately is. But at worst, you have added a Gold Glove caliber utility man to bounce around all over the field. And maybe he's your shortstop. Maybe he's not. But I'm not going to lose sleep over adding a Gold Glove level defender who you can deploy all over the place. And then, as we've talked about for Yastrzemski for the first 15 minutes of the show, a really reliable, consistent, durable left-handed hitter, which is something that it sounds like based on your comments, you feel like is going to play up at Truist Park and just bring some stability to this outfield that has had anything but stability for the better part of 5 years.
Yeah. And you absolutely have to factor in the fact that this allows Ronald Acuna Jr. to DH more into the calculus of how you feel about the deal overall. Like that, I know I'm going to steal an Atlanta Hawks word. That optionality matters. Same with Profar.
Yeah.
Yastrzemski can play right field. He can play left field. He can play right field and left field probably better than the Braves starting right fielder and the Braves starting left fielder, if we're being objectively honest here.
Yeah.
So
Profar's numbers last year were awful. And the eye test was pretty bad too.
Yeah, awful. If Yastrzemski could hit left-handed pitching, I would be asking, is Yastrzemski the left fielder? That's how bad Profar was out there last year. And Ronald is not great in right field. I mean, we just have to be honest about it. So the fact that this dude can actually, when right-handers are on the mound, that he can hit at a level that I am comfortable where he can be an impact hitter for you. I think the park is going to matter. And he allows Acuna and Profar to DH. All have to be accounted for. And they all matter. Now, again, I need to see the Braves do more. 100% I need to see the Braves do. I want a starting shortstop. If Mauricio Dubon is the super utility guy versus the starting shortstop, the level of that move goes up, right? The more you add, the more each of these smaller moves look better and better. If the Braves add Robert Suarez, which has been rumored over the last few days, if the Braves add a starting pitcher, if they add a shortstop, all of these moves look better. So the context matters. So the people that are losing their minds right now, we at least have to let them get through the offseason before we judge the offseason.
Yeah.
And if they do the stuff I think they're going to do around the rest of the roster, this will look better. But I do want people to give Yastrzemski a chance. I do think adding him to that ballpark, there is more upside in that bat than maybe people are thinking right off the surface.
I think, Stephen, that when June, July, we hit the midway point in the season, I really feel like Yastrzemski is going to endear himself to the fans.
Yeah.
And people are going to, hey, this guy's a pretty good ball player. And he does a little bit of everything.
He was beloved in San Francisco. The fans love that guy.
Yeah, when the Giants traded him at the deadline, there was like a legitimate reaction from the fan base. I mean, kind of think like Ozzy Albies, like the level of endearment that Ozzy has with this fan base. So good guy. I'm sure I can guarantee you when Alex Anthopoulos talks about Yastrzemski in his press conference or whenever he meets with the media, he'll say he did his background on Yastrzemski and he was well liked, which is I read something about Yastrzemski. It was 2023, but when he's with the Giants players credit him for being just a good voice in the clubhouse where if they're struggling, they can go talk to him and he'll sit there and watch video with them. Like that's something that Alex values. And I know some fans might roll their eyes at that, but man alive, you want to see things go sideways, get a bunch of guys who hate each other in the clubhouse and see how hard they're playing every night and see how eager they are to go to the yard every single game. And I mean, these guys are around each other 24/7 pretty much during the season, and clubhouse stuff absolutely matters.
Now I'll say this, Walt Weiss, new manager. When you have a guy that has platoon splits like this, you have to be Johnny on the spot with when you use him and when you don't use him. And, if you're Alex and you acquire a guy like this who mashes right-handed pitching, but really probably doesn't need to be in there against left-handed pitching, I need Walt Weiss to be Johnny on the spot with, when he starts him, if he's going to have him in the game, a lefty comes in the game, have a plan for who's going to bat for him. He can bat against lefties in like it's a relatively low leverage spot. Maybe it's the second inning or something, but games on the line, this is where Walt Weiss is going to have to be, I didn't always trust Brian Snitker. If I'm being honest, I didn't always trust Brian Snitker to do this. Yeah. I want to see Walt Weiss be tactical and aggressive when you have a guy who's really essentially a righty masher at this point in his career.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about how the Braves will probably deploy Yastrzemski. We've talked about it a bit, his ability to play pretty much 3 defensive positions in the outfield. Although more than likely, I think he'll probably see some time in left field. He'll see some time in right field, and he will be the DH as well. And largely against righties, we never know what injuries are going to come down the pipeline, and that forces changes with the order. But I think more times than not, almost, I'm going to say 90% of the time when everyone is healthy, I think Yastrzemski will be in the lineup against right-handed pitching. Against lefties, it's a little more interesting because you still have Sean Murphy on this team. And let's talk about that just here for a minute, Steven. I mean, at the moment, my lean, and I think your lean, is that against righties, you'll see Yastrzemski in there. And against lefties, Yastrzemski will probably sit the bench for Sean Murphy to DH or catch, and then have Drake Baldwin DH. That's kind of my lean at this point, not knowing what the rest of the roster is going to be. But where are you at with that?
Yeah, so the Braves all of a sudden have a really potent lineup against right-handed pitching, because not only do you have Acuna, who hits everybody, but you have Olsen, you have Profar, you have Baldwin, and now you have Yastrzemski, all that have a platoon advantage. And then, of course, Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies still technically have the platoon advantage, but who knows what they're going to give you offensively next year.
Yeah.
Against left-handed pitching, there's more questions, right? Because what are you going to get from Austin Riley? What are you going to get from Sean Murphy? 2 guys who you expect to be part of your lefty mashing unit, if you will. So I am curious to see what they roll out as left-handed starters come through. A lot of it's going to be tied to Sean Murphy's hip. When does he come back? What does he look like when he comes back? Listen, then this has been a pro Sean Murphy podcast for as long as he's been in the organization. The guy needs to be more consistent. I know a bunch of that was about health, and apparently he's been dealing with this hip stuff for years, but the guy needs to be more consistent. He would be a world beater for 3 weeks and then he'd disappear for a month. When you're relying on him to help you against left-handed pitching, so you're not vulnerable on that side of the ball, you need him to be more consistent. We need Austin Riley to get back to being Austin Riley. Against right-handed pitching, I feel really good about the lineup. Left-handed pitching, I still need to see a little more. But yeah, I think you're right. I would be surprised. Baldwin's going to play a ton. The fact that Murphy's making like $15 million and might only play like 30% of the time, I'm very, I think you and I talked about it offline. Like if you give Alex Trusserum, I'm guessing he would love to get off that contract if he could. I think they're going to have to wait until Sean Murphy shows that he's healthy to do it. Because, paying $15 million for basically what is now pretty much your backup catcher.
His value is so low. You're selling Murphy at the bottom of the ocean. You might as well hang on to him and see if he has a good 2026. Not only then you get his production, but then you could actually trade him for something that's useful.
Yeah, and then you're $15 million more clear of the contract, and he's only got 2 years left. It just everything becomes more palatable then. So yeah, that's still like a situation that they're going to have to figure out. And then shortstop, we'll see what they do. But if Mauricio Dubon, like Eli White, ability to play center field, Mauricio Dubon's ability to play everywhere, gives you enough defensive versatility where, you're fine. Like even if Michael Harris goes out, or Michael Harris is you need a day off against a tough lefty. Both DeBon and Eli White can play center field. So you're not, I know Yastrzemski as a left-handed hitter doesn't match up great with Harris because they're both left-handed, but you've got enough versatility elsewhere on the bench where you're okay there. So yeah, they need to keep going. Don't stop. Keep adding. And then all of these moves, it's like, the rising tide raises all boats. Like, we got to keep adding, even if it's little moves, they make all the other little moves look better.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. What could be next for the Braves and kind of the overall approach of the offseason so far and also going forward. But first, another quick word from our partners. All right, Stephen, I want to ask you this question, and I think I know the answer, and I think most people listening know the answer, but does signing Mike Yastrzemski pretty much end any thought of trading for Byron Buxton or even bringing back Marcell Ozuna? Like, I know those are two very different players from each other, but I mean, unless Marcell Ozuna wants to come back for like $2 million at the end of the offseason, or the Twins are just giving Byron Buxton away, which they're not going to do, it kind of feels like to me this is the outfield DH edition of the offseason.
It does feel that way. I'm trying to think of a scenario where like you could do all of them, like maybe Buxton, but even that doesn't make sense. Once you're paying Yastrzemski like $9-10 million, like you're doing that for him to play. And if you traded for Buxton, then Yastrzemski wouldn't play.
Unless you're trading Michael Harris.
Trading Michael Harris. That's very true.
Is the only path forward to, because you're not trading Acuna, and I would be shocked if they would trade Profar. So Harris,
you know what, Scott, you're right. You're right. Like if they were like, well, Harris needs to be part of the deal, you'd still have 4 outfielder. You know what? You're 100% right. That's not out of the question. I know some people would probably balk at that. I think that's reasonable for the Twins to ask for Michael Harris for Byron Buxton. You're
fascinating.
right.
We'll cross that bridge if and when we get there.
I tell you what, you kind of blew my mind with that one because you're 100% right. That's still very much out there. I could see that. I think the Ozuna door is closed. I don't see a world where they're signing, like you said, unless he's like, literally, I'll play for $1 million. Just put me on the bench. The last bench spot when you have the DH, the last bench spot is pretty useless anyways. I guess you could like, all right, we got our lefty matcher at least. Maybe late in games, you don't want Michael Harris taking that at bat. You give it to Marcell Ozuna. I could see that, but like, as a full-time DH, there's no way with what they did today.
Yeah. And then shortstop, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but as things stand, and both Walt Weiss and Alex Anthopoulos kind of reiterated what we've heard since the trade for Mauricio Dubon, that they're both comfortable with Dubon being the shortstop. But I think we would all say that we're probably happier if Dubon is a utility player and can bounce all over the place. And then you have Ha-Seong Kim as your shortstop, or they go out and trade for someone. There's not a ton of shortstop options who I think are feasible to trade for. I mean, hell, if they want to shock us and trade for Corey Seager tomorrow, I mean, you want to see Scott do some jumping jacks and cartwheels off the couch. That's the kind of move I'll do that for. Maybe not Mike Yastrzemski, but I think because, and tell me if I'm forgetting anyone, but guaranteed money that they have either brought back or added is Raisel Iglesias for $16 million, Mauricio Dubon for $6 million, call it $4 million in additions because they would have had Nick Allen on the roster for $2 million, but Dubon, Iglesias, Yoel Payamps got $2.25 million.
Right.
And then Mike Yastrzemski tonight for $9 million. So that's 9 plus 2 plus 6 plus 16 is about $34 million that they have added.
Yep. That's
never good at math. Don't tell my mom I can't count. So that's significant money, not crazy money. And again, for the 10th time this show, I think Stephen and I are both desperately hoping that bigger moves or even just more moves are on the horizon. But you would think after spending $30 million, the Braves still have plenty of room to go out and add where this team needs to add.
Yeah. No, like, listen, if we wake up tomorrow and they sign Robert Suarez, then like, you're like, damn, all right, it's really starting to take shape. If after that they sign, not even like Ranger Suarez level, but they sign just like a solid, like a Brad Keller type, you're like, all right, that's That's depth. That's something we desperately needed. And then they sign a shortstop or trade for a shortstop. Like it does. I think you're right. I agree with what you said earlier that like when we get to the end and we look at the roster as a whole, I think most people, most reasonable people at least, will be happy. I know there's a faction of the fan base that is just mad anytime it's not a superstar.
Yeah.
Because the Braves, listen, and I do get frustrated. Like the Braves do not, when we get to these free agency and there's like that top tier of free agents, and it's frustrating that like your team is just never in for those guys. Like you're never in for the Schwarbers, you're never in for the Tuckers, you're never in for the Bellingers or the Sotos or whatever. And I get it. That is frustrating. It's frustrating to watch other teams sign them, but we just got to get over that. Like Alex is just not going to, he doesn't swim in those waters. And the Braves financially, at least at this point, don't swim in those waters. So they have to be more creative. I think this is a very creative solution to adding right-handed power and maybe even a little upside with the ballpark. So I don't, again, I'm probably higher on this move than a lot of other people are because I do think there's upside. But yes, keep going, keep adding. That is the most important thing. Don't stop. And this is what pissed me off last year is they added Profar. I was like, all right, that's fantastic. And then they just stopped. They didn't do anything else. They didn't do anything the trade deadline. Keep going, keep adding. And all of these little moves look better, in retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I promise you, people watching the show, listening to the show, if this is it, if Mike Yastrzemski is the last significant ad of the offseason,
that sucks.
Stephen and I are going to do a show screaming into the microphones for 2 hours. But
keep going. Keep going.
That's right. Keep pouring fuel on the fire. So far, it's been measured pours of gasoline onto the fire.
And you can do multiple of those and add up to something big, but you can't stop. You got to keep going.
Yes. Add something to this bullpen.
Yeah.
Add a starting pitcher.
Yes.
Figure out shortstop.
Yes.
Again, if it's Mauricio Dubon, I'm not going to lose sleep, but I think objectively, we would all like to see them have someone better than Dubon and to free him up.
Correct.
But today, the Atlanta Braves are a better baseball team than they were yesterday because of Mike Yastrzemski.
Yeah.
The guy can hit. He is a solid hitter. Again, not Kyle Schwarber, not Kyle Tucker, but I understand what the Braves are doing here. And sometimes they make moves and we're like, oh man, what are they doing? But this is a move I fully understand, especially if you listen to some of the things that Alex Anthopoulos has said lately about wanting to, they asked him point blank about DH yesterday. And he said he wanted to rotate DH and utilize it to rest players and have more versatility, more flexibility with this roster. This roster had become very static, where there was very little flexibility, position over position. With Dubon and Yastrzemski, they've added a lot more of that all of a month into the offseason.
Yeah. And high fly ball rate, high pull rate. High fly ball rate, high pull rate. He's a left-handed hitter going to a short porch stadium. If you're in the chop house, keep a heads up because I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that was calculated. So yeah, and 100% it matters that they're not going to be stuck with a full-time DH. You have to factor that in. That Acuna can DH now. Profar can DH now. Like that helps a ton for not only in game. I mean, not having to watch Profar late in a game or something. Or even for the full game, not having to watch Profar in left field. He's just DHing that night. Or Acuna, to keep him healthy, is DHing way more than he could when Ozuna was there every single night. Of course, 100% it matters that they're now rotating it versus a full-time guy.
And finally, and shame on me for bearing the lead on this, because this is incredibly important, but Mike Yastrzemski has agreed to donate 1% of his salary to the Atlanta Braves Foundation.
I have also agreed to do that. The check is in the mail. So, it's a team effort for the Atlanta Braves Foundation. We all got to chip in. I would love to know. I would love to know at what point do they ask that question? Like, is it after he signed? Is it like while he's signing? It's like, oh, by the way, don't forget the 1%. Like, I would love to know exactly how they broach that conversation.
That's right. $23 million guaranteed. What is $230,000 between friends, Stephen? Right?
Yeah, right.
Chump change in the podcast world. Maybe for the Kelsey brothers, but one day, buddy, we'll get there.
One day.
Yeah, one day. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this emergency edition of the Hammer Territory podcast. as always, thank you for tuning into the show. We really do enjoy doing these emergency shows. We tried to wrangle the horses right after the trade, or I guess the signing rather, went down, and to break it all down for you, give our takes, and we'll have plenty more reaction. I know next time we'll have a show, we'll have 24 to 48 hours to kind of let this breathe and marinate and see how we're feeling about it. And of course, if the Braves make any other moves, especially with the winter meetings wrapping up, we'll be here. And even if there's not news, Stephen, we still find a way to do a podcast.
We're gonna be here no matter
times. What. That's right. All off season long, we find a way to do shows. Any closing thoughts from you, my friend?
Keep going. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't do what you did last year with making a good signing and then just stopping. The team needs more help. I think the NL East is very gettable. The Mets just gotten a lot worse today. And, the Phillies are getting old quick. That Schwarber deal is no joke. I think you tweeted out, you or Brad, one of you tweeted out, like, that roster is going to fall off a cliff at some point. I think the East is gettable. The AL East is a monster, but I think the NL East is gettable. So keep going, keep adding. And all these moves look better if you just keep adding more and more talent.
You heard it here, Alex. Please, for the love of God, go keep adding. My mentions will not survive the offseason.
I am actually afraid to log on to Twitter right now.
Yeah. Yes. Mike Yastrzemski, the worst baseball player to ever brace the earth. All right, folks, as always, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with plenty more shows and content this week and throughout the entire offseason. Until then, we will see everybody next time.